All right, what is up, everybody? This is Alex once again with another episode of the EOT News Flash. This is episode 71, Zombie Apocalypse, aka this is what happens when you don't harness lightning your opponent's Crypt Breaker. That was a thing. If you're watching over on YouTube, you might notice that I am not joined by anybody again tonight. Schedules being the things that they are, it's no big deal. This is a one-man performance tonight, so you get to listen to me for the next half an hour, maybe more, depending on how rambly I feel like getting. But we have got a lot to talk about tonight. We have got our full Pro Tour recap. There was a lot to talk about. Things that showed up, things that didn't show up, things that happened that were cool, things that happened that were not so cool, of which there were not very many of those, so that's kind of irrelevant at this point. But I do want to go ahead and reference the poll from last week in which I asked, and I quote, should Magic bring back core sets, or Wizards bring back core sets back to Magic to help with reprints? Pithing Needle would make a lot of sense in Kaladesh. Yes, I remembered that it was a masterpiece after the fact. Thank you to everybody who pointed that out. Thanks. But with a resounding 64% of the votes, the answer was yes. So a lot of people miss the core sets. I can't be the only one. Where they actually belong in the release and all that good stuff, well, that's a completely different story and a conversation for another day. But I do appreciate everybody who voted on that and gave me some great feedback as well. So I have to give a shout out to Steven, actually, Mr. Spellpierce, who voted yes simply because he misses Garrick, who saw his last printing in a core set. So we miss Garrick. We love Garrick. For everybody who's not watching on YouTube right now, I'm going to be doing referencing some on-screen stuff, pictures and deck lists and things like that. So if you haven't got a chance to watch us over on YouTube, definitely go and check that out over on YouTube. Just look for the EOT News Flash. There you will find the last 25 or so episodes I have done in a video format. Production being what it is on my relatively limited budget is not bad, I'd like to think. But definitely, if you haven't gotten a chance to go check that out, definitely go check that out, where you can watch our smiling faces and the things that we're doing, interacting with each other back and forth. So if it sounds like I'm referencing something on a screen somewhere, I probably am. So go check it out on YouTube. I will put links in the description over on MTGcast where the audio version of this goes. So if you're listening or watching, thank you regardless. So let's get right into the Pro Tour. There's a picture right up on the screen right now of our top 8. I could not begin to remember all of their names, so we'll get into their deck list here in just a little bit. But let's talk about what went down, essentially. There were no Mardu vehicles in the top 8. I predicted there might be one or two, but I wasn't expecting there to be none. Unfortunately, right now, I cannot find a full breakdown of the top 16 or top 32 beyond that. There were a number of Mardu decks that made day 2. It had a relatively high conversion rate. I think that there were somewhere around, I'm going to do a little bit of cheating here and refer to the notes, as it were. But to give kind of a breakdown, and I'm looking for the numbers again. I had this. It's been difficult to find a lot of the numbers online for whatever reason. Oh, here we go. So there were 99 Mardu vehicles lists that showed up. 26.2% of the field, followed closely, and I do by Teamer Aetherworks Aetherworks Marvel. There we go. Marvel Aetherworks. I like that better, actually. With 72 decks, 19% of the field, followed by Mono Black Zombies with 63 decks in the field and taking up 16.7% of the field. Beyond that, the breakdown went into Blue-Red Control, White-Black Zombies, Sultai Aetherworks Marvel, Teamer Energy, Black-Green Energy, White-Blue Flash, New Perspectives Combo, 4-color Aetherworks Marvel, Black-Green Delirium, Bant Aetherworks Marvel, Black-Green Cryptolith Rights, Black-Red Midrange, Black-Green Constrictor, Blue-Red Dynavolt Tower, Jeskai Control, Jund Gods, Sultai Delirium, Blue-Red Emerge, Mardu Planeswalker, Red-White Humans, White-Blue Spirits, Teamer Dynavolt Tower, Abzan Delirium, Abzan Tokens, Green-White Tokens, Red-Green Electrostatic Pummeler, Red-Green Energy, Red-White Exert, Blue-White Control, White-Blue Control, White-Blue Engulf the Shore, and Breathe. So all in all, there were, I believe, 378 deck lists registered. Yes. So there was obviously a consensus that there were three best decks in the format: Mardu Vehicles, Teamer Aetherworks Marvel, and Mono Black Zombies. And that's really what came through, with a couple of decks kind of sneaking through, one in particular into the top 8. But let's kind of talk about what happened here to these Mardu vehicle decks, and we'll get in and we'll end. Next week we can do a little bit better of a deeper analysis once the team gets back together, because they have some introspection on the why and the how Mardu failed or broke down, if you want to make a car reference there. So a lot of what it comes down to is that Mardu Vehicles' Aetherworks Marvel matchup is atrocious. Unless they can kill you before the Marvel comes down and hits Ulamog, they can't beat you, essentially. The other alternative to beating Mardu Vehicles was going underneath them, going so wide that their spot removal just couldn't cope anymore. And that's what Mono Black Zombies does. This deck is a massacre waiting to happen. If you let it get going long enough, you will get buried under a literal mountain of zombies. And if you're Gerry Thompson, our winner, you do it in style with those sweet foil zombie tokens from the Shadows over Innistrad pre-release. Very, very classy decision there. So that's basically what happened. All people showed up taking what was understood to be the best deck post-Feldar Guardian banning and got their butts kicked because they didn't expect anything else to happen. We saw how good Aetherworks Marvel was before the Emrakul banning. And then once we got Feldar Guardian into the mix, and that created the 4-color copycat deck, it just pushed everything else out of the format. Unfortunately, we have replaced one turn 4 combo deck with another turn 4 combo deck, and puts the bullseye squarely on the back of anybody sleeving up Aetherworks Marvel, which it's still a good deck, and it created a lot of diverse lists, and we actually will see a bunch of that diversity when we look at our top 8 here in just a moment. But there is a bunch of diversity within this deck list in particular. So that's really kind of cool the ways you can go with it. And there's already been a lot of talk by a lot of the pros saying, this is the way I'd approach this because of this reason and that reason and so on and so forth. So let's get into the top 8. And I'm going to have to do some on-the-fly rejiggering of the screen. Let's see here. Bear with me, everybody. We're going to get there. Just do a little draggy, a little drop. Wham bam. Alright, there we go. And we're going to start right at the top with Gerry Thompson. Popular Magic curmudgeon. I believe this was either his second or third Pro Tour top 8 appearance. I believe it was his second. And what does he do? He goes and wins the whole freaking thing, registering 22 basic swamps. That takes guts, and I appreciate that. So he showed up with Mono Black Zombies. I believe he was on Team Genesis. If you've been following the Pro Tour scene for a while now, actually the past 2 Pro Tours, you know that we've been doing the Team Series where you're getting a lot of the big-name pros together to work together and break decks. While we've had that in the past, it's been a small number of decks. You've had teams like Team Channel Fireball Ice, Fireball Fire, which... not very smart naming there. Star City Games Black, Star City Games Blue. MTG Mint Card brings a team every year. Haruruya brings a team every year. But now we've got more teams. We've got the guys over with the MTG Puzzle Quest. We have Team Dex Protection. Like every company that makes some kind of Magic product seems to have a hand in a team now, and that's really cool because sponsorships, I think, is what makes for good, compelling, teams to watch, because they're obviously going to bring in good talent. They're going to pimp out with sweet shirts, for the most part, and it creates cool narratives because all of a sudden Team Y is battling against Team X, and they're best friends on each side of the team, or they're countrymen together, and they're fighting it out. So that's kind of cool. But I digress. Let's talk about Mono Black Zombies. Again, 22 Swamps and 2 Westvale Abbeys. That's your mana base. And it breaks down into a bunch of 4s. 4 Crypt Breakers, 4 Diagraph Colossus, 4 Dread Wanderer, 4 Lord of the Accursed, 4 Metallic Mimic, 4 Relentless Dead. That's a lot of zombies right there. Dark Salvation was an absolute monster of a card. Sometimes just casting for a single black mana, not paying any of the double X to just kill a creature on the spot because your board got so big, using the power of Crypt Breaker and Relentless Set to just refill your board constantly. Fatal Push, of course, makes a appearance here because why not? It's a removal spell. Grasp of Darkness, the best removal spell in the format right now. The card that I was overjoyed to see at the Pro Tour, and as soon as I saw, I forget who was playing when I was watching it on camera. I watched most of it over the weekend. As soon as they drew it, I was just like, oh man, it's so cool. Liliana's Mastery. 3 black enchantment. When it enters the battlefield, create 2/2 zombies and gives all zombies you control +1/+1. Holy crap. Like, that's 5 mana for 6 power. And then across the board, it just, oh my goodness, this card's so insane. So insane. And multiple stack. It's so great. This is how the zombie deck gets out of control. It combines the Lord effects, like Lord of the Accursed, Liliana's Mastery, and powers up with Diagraph Colossus and Crypt Breaker. Like, the whole deck is just a well-tuned 4/4/4 machine. It feels a lot like Mono Blue Devotion, actually, in some regards, and just how wide it can go and just present this insurmountable board advantage that not even Ulamog can beat out of these Aetherworks Marvel decks. Multiple times on camera, I saw Ulamog come off the Aetherworks Marvel, and it couldn't do it. Like, the zombies were just too many. The sideboard is interesting because there's a lot of talk about a couple cards in the sideboard here. And a lot of the pros who played the deck were like, yeah, the sideboard was just what it is. When you're playing nothing but swamps, you do what you can. But Lost Legacy is, and to an extent, Dispossess, which is sort of that new cranial extraction version. The consensus among a lot of the pros and a lot of people watching and playing this deck was that these cards are just not good enough. There was actually a game in which I believe it was Christian Calcana, who also made his first top 8 of his pro career, up against Marvelworks, Aetherworks Marvel, there we go. I'm going to get that wrong all night. Marvelworks cast 2 Lost Legacies, hitting both Chandra Flamecaller and I believe Ulamog was the other target, and still lost. Simply because the Marvelworks deck, Aetherworks Marvel, can just grind out the advantage and just was able to push past the zombies, which is so. Typically, cards like Lost Legacy and Dispossess are known to be not good, but when you've got a card like Aetherworks Marvel to deal with, you've got to do something. But unfortunately, that probably just isn't the answer. So I would not, if I was playing Mono Black or Black White Zombies this weekend or any variant of zombies, I would not be relying on Lost Legacy or Dispossess to handle the Marvelworks decks. Aetherworks Marvel, gosh. Aetherworks Marvel, not Marvelworks. So, yeah. So Gerry Thompson won it all in a incredible final. At least for him. I was rooting for him the entire way through the top 8. Played against masterful Japanese player. Skip ahead. Yuya Watanabe, who was playing Marvelous Teamer, as MTG Top 8 calls it. But this, you know what this is. This is Teamer Aetherworks Marvel. Not a lot has changed with this deck, except for some very key items. So the first one I want to point out, Torrential Gearhulk and Glimmer of Genius. Typically, these decks are just hit Aetherworks Marvel, spin it, Ulamog, win. And that seemed to not work all that well in some cases. Sometimes you've got to play a longer game. And Glimmer of Genius and Torrential Gearhulk help play to that late game where you can just bury your opponent with card advantage. And that seems like a really cool innovation. Louis Scott Vargas posted a great article over on Channel Fireball already this week talking about his variant that he would take of Aetherworks Marvel. And this is very much in line with what he wants to be playing right now. Something that has a lot of spells to it, not just permanent, and ones that can go longer into the game. So, and I think we're absolutely right here. Glimmer of Genius and Torrential Gearhulk being really important to this deck. Over in the sideboard, nothing too fancy. Bristling Hydra, because why not? Shieldless Aether Thief came into play during the final against Thompson and was drawing cards like a madman. I was so sure that every time that Yuya drew another card, it just had to be the Marvel to activate to get Ulamog and just reset the game all entirely. I was like, the card's so innocuously good. If you've never seen this card in action, you probably drafted it a few times. I'm gonna try to get it on the screen here, which it's not working right now. But it's a 0/4, 1 in a blue, has flash. When it blocks you, you get an energy, and you may tap it and pay 3 energy to draw a card. And of course, the deck just draws a million cards because it draws a million energy. So there you go. So that is Aetherworks Marvel Teamer Edition. Great final. If you haven't got a chance to watch it, go back and watch that final between Yuya and Gerry. There's some goofy misplays. Gerry goes for a Grasp of Darkness on a 4/5 Winding Constrictor, thinking it's going to die. Oh no, this was against Ken Yukihiro this happened against. And then immediately just look on his face, he just punted it, you can tell. But definitely, if you have some time, go back and check out the top 8. You can just skip through it as you need to. There's a lot of really good Magic being played there, and just kind of shows you what high competitive level Magic looks like when it's being played. What look like very obvious lines. Well, you just play the land and say go. Maybe not. And seeing these players kind of stop and think and hearing the commentary in the background. Is really always really interesting. I like it, especially at the highest levels in competition, especially when even the FCG Opens. The guys over there do a really great job too. So I do have to mention that the coverage in general was very, very good for this Pro Tour in particular. It's been kind of lacking over the past couple of seasons, but just the production value just seemed to be on point. The commentators all seem to be jiving really well together. Even the overlays on the screen, whether you're watching it on Twitch or whatever you're going to watch it on, looked really great. So kudos to Wizards. Whatever you decide to do, keep doing that. So yeah, there you go. So let's move on to our 3rd and 4th place decks. We have Ken Yukihiro, another Japanese player who I believe is also on the same team as Yuya Watanabe, playing the standalone green-black deck in the top 8, playing green-black Energy. And this deck is just all kinds of sweet. It is about as low to the ground aggressive as you can possibly get without becoming mono red. So a couple of cards I want to point out here. We have the Wannabe Dark Confidant, Glint Sleeve Siphoner. We have Bone Picker. Take a minute and think. How many Bone Pickers do you reckon were registered for this Pro Tour? I'll give you a minute to think. You got a number in your head? Because you're wrong. It's these 4. He registered the only 4 Bone Pickers in the freaking tournament. Man, that is sweet. You show up to the tournament, they're like, "Oh, what are you playing? You can?" You're like, "Oh, Bone Picker," and everyone's like, "No, you're not. That's not our card. That's a bad card." You're like, "No, absolutely not. Not when it does what it did against Thompson and some of their semifinal matches." Fatal Push to enable the Dice Trigger on Bone Picker and play 2 in the same turn. That's insane. That's 2 mana for 6 power. Black Delver of Secrets, this thing is. I don't know if it's good enough, but it sure damn impressed me. Holy cow. Of other cards to know, we have Long Tusk Cub, Rishgar, Pima Renegade, Walking Ballista, Winding Constrictor, the usual suspects. This is just a super low-to-the-ground green-black aggro deck, only playing 20 lands, when the other decks are playing at least 22. And they were kind of talking about, why is this deck so low to the ground? Well, it's to get underneath zombies, underneath Aetherworks Marvel, and also underneath Mardu vehicles, and it totally paid off. The only reason that Gerry won in their semifinal match was just he outpaced him. Ken's draws were just not very good, unfortunately. I think this is a really cool deck, actually. It has a lot of great tools to keep fighting in this metagame. Having Dispossess and Manglehorn in the sideboard are fantastic to fight against Mardu vehicles if that continues to be a deck. The one thing I would like to see, though, here, and it's obviously changes the deck up considerably, is make this more of the green-black Delirium decks we saw a little bit earlier in the season, to which still showed up at this Pro Tour, just not in any numerical success. But it seems like we're missing a huge part here with the Green Gearhulk, Verdurous Gearhulk not being in this deck, and that's kind of weird. I would think that a deck like this would want to use Verdurous Gearhulk to just fantastic results, but lands being what they are, curve being what it is. I can understand why they didn't go that direction. Maybe there was a evolution of this deck at some point that will take advantage of that card. I don't know. But it seems like an obvious inclusion here. So I would be curious to find out what Ken and his team decided was the reason to not play Verdurous Gearhulk being such a powerful card, especially with things like Walking Ballista and Winding Constrictor. But you never know. Pros are pros for a reason, and I'm not going to disagree with them in this case. So another really great deck, and shows just the masterfulness that these Japanese players have. Whenever they come to a tournament, they play to win. And seeing Ken break through the top 8 with a deck that nobody else was pretty much playing is really, really cool. Next up, we have Martin Mueller, who is also playing Aetherworks Marvel Flamecaller Edition. I told you there was some adaptations here, and this is one of them right here. So the really big difference here is that Martin's more in on the actual permanence, while Yuya was playing more spell heavy. Martin is much more in on sort of this more mid-rangey kind of plan, I guess you could say, playing things like Rogue Refiner, Servant of the Conduit, Whirler Virtuoso, lots of creatures in addition to the 3 Ulamogs. Only has Harness Lightning as his only removal spell. And when he gets into Aether Meltdown kind of counts as a removal spell, maybe, but Chandra Flamecaller was a huge innovation within his team's deck, simply because it beats the crap out of zombies. When you hit it off of Aetherworks Marvel, use its -X ability to wipe their board, that's it. That's game over, because there's not a lot of board states that the X ability could not just decimate. Not decimate, because that's only reduced by a 10th, but destroy, obliterate the zombie opponent's board. And that's what she's there for. And that's what she did a lot of times. And creating those 3/1 haste tokens, also perfectly reasonable beatdown win condition. So again, this is another adaptation here that I think is going to be key moving forward if you're going to continue playing Aetherworks Marvel, to adopt a more spell-heavy version of it, to play Chandra, or just have some kind of sweeper effect, because the zombies are going to come out in force now. Unless everybody picks up on this whole Marvel tech thing here and it just wipes them out again. And then Marty Vehicles falls by the wayside because of that as well. And then we have another topic on the format. We have to ban Ulamog. Ooh. Maybe not. Anyway, so yeah, that's Martin Mueller and his Marvelous Teamer deck. I love the naming conventions they use on here, because they have nothing related to what they use on stream and coverage. I don't know. Next, we've got Mark Tobiask? Sure. Who is also playing Teamer Aetherworks Marvel. Again, not a whole lot of differences here. He's playing some Tile Checkers on the main board. A Shielded Aether Thief makes an appearance in the main board as well. Cool, fun card. We've got Magnus Rays and Harness Lightning as far as our removal goes. He is also playing Chandra Torch of Defiance, though, this time. I think I like Flamecaller better than I do Torch of Defiance, simply because the X ability is so much more powerful. And as we saw, if the format's going to shift towards more zombies versus Marvel decks, you need to have a good sweeper. One of the reasons that we already mentioned that our new vehicles did not do very well in day 2 and on these zombie decks were, is because they just flat ran out of spot removal. You can only have so many fatal pushes and harness lightnings until the zombie deck just goes, well, here's 8 million more zombies. Problem for you, because you have lightning bolts in your hand, and that's not going to count. So I do like Flamecaller, which he does have on the sideboard, and Confiscation's Coup. Yeah. I'm going to take your Marvel, and I'm going to use myself now. Thank you very much. So yeah, there is some hybridization of the Marvel decks moving forward that I think, and somebody's going to be able to get to sort of this sweet spot and really craft the perfect version of the deck. And I think it's going to be really cool, because the person who can figure that out, that configuration, is going to be doing a lot of winning, whether it's on Moto or paper tournaments or Grand Prix or whatever it's going to be. Next up, we have Mr. Eric Froelich, also playing Teamer Aetherworks Marvel. Seeing a problem here, people. Again, he's playing a little bit more of a spell-heavy version, much like Yu was. He has a Torrential Gear Hulk. He has a Glimmer of Geniuses. Censor makes an appearance here, which I think is a vastly underrated card here. Because what we were seeing during these especially these late in the day matches during the top 8 and going up into them, is that card advantage is king here. I think back to the matchup between Yuya and Gerry, in which Gerry Thompson was amassing, 4 or 5 zombies in play, but was like, I'm not going to attack you yet. Why get in for 2-3 points of damage when I can use my zombies, my Crypt Breaker, to draw some cards and keep my hand refueled again. And that's probably, I think back to that final match where Yuya declined to harness Lightning a Crypt Breaker, and instead went, I think it was for the Lord instead. And Gerry just was like, yeah, I'll tap 3 zombies, lose a life, I'll draw a card. I'll do it again. And was doing this multiple times and just leaving damage on the board, but it cascaded into him having more cards in his hand, more than the deck that was designed to draw cards. That's rocking Glimmer of Geniuses and Rogue Refiners. Just outpaced him and found the critical mass to just beat him. 2 attacks it took for him to kill Yuya in all 3 of the games, if I'm mistaken, just over multiple times. Just fantastic sequencing from Gerry Thompson. Like I said already, go back and watch that final. It's fantastic. But yeah, Eric Froelich here, another, he's on Team Channel Fireball Ice, Platinum level pro, but he's also a Hall of Famer. Showing up again with Aetherworks Marvel, playing a much more spell-heavy version, Glimmers and Sensors. I like that a lot. His Chandras are in the sideboard. Sure, that's where they belong. But he's already we're already seeing that that hybridization between what Yuya, Martin, and Mark were playing. He kind of found to be a sweet spot there. So maybe with some more tinkering there, they might be onto something. I don't know. We'll find out though. In 7th place, we've got Christian Calcano making his first ever Pro Tour appearance. If you did not see the clip of him being interviewed by Brian David Marshall, BDM, who's one of the WotC coverage hosts, he absolutely breaks down during his interview. And it was, I hadn't seen it yet, and somebody posted it to my Facebook feed, and I'm like, okay, I have followed Christian Calcano. You know, he's been doing, he plays a lot of Magic. I think he has played more GPs than anybody ever. Don't quote me on that. That might be hearsay, but he's played a ton of GPs, and this is his first Pro Tour top 8, and he's just standing up there, and you can tell that he is barely holding on and holding back these tears, and he's got his arm on BDM, and they're both kind of like, he's like, you can do it, man, and they're just talking back and forth, and he just can't hold it, and he breaks down. I'm getting a little choked up here thinking about it, because you can tell that the passion that he has for this game is so real, and his team, they're hugging on him, and it was a beautiful, beautiful scene, and it really kind of shows the dedication that some of these players really put into it, and it's inspiring, actually. If you're somebody out there who's on the grind, who wants to, make the Pro Tour, that's your man right there. Do it like Christian does. But he is also playing mono black zombies, very much like what Gerry Thompson ended up winning the whole thing with. Minor tweaks here and there, 3 fatal pushes instead of 2 late on his masters instead of 3, just whatever, just minor tweaks here and there. Numbers being what they are, that could have affected something, but for the most part, there's some more decks, and it just came down to some really awkward draws. Again, this was one of those cases where he attempted to be, I believe it was Martin Mueller actually, where he tried Lost Legacy. I'm going to name Chandra. I'm going to name Ulamog. And I still can't beat this Marvel deck. I'd have to go back and watch it again. But the clips I saw, I was just like, my God. How is that possible? You just took out his 2 win cons, and it still can't be beat. This deck is bonkers. But yeah, we've already said about Mono Black Zombies with Gerry Thompson's list. It can be said again here. Dargolf Colossus is absolutely bonkers when you can play it with, and then back it up with some more zombie spells in the late game. Insane. The one thing that I like a lot about all of these creatures is that they are good early and they are good late. And, Crypt Breaker is a good card drawer. People were liking it to Heritage Druid, I believe is the card. Comes down, starts tapping and drawing cards, so it's good late game. Dargolf Colossus gets huge in the late game, or if you have some zombies already in the graveyard, it gets huge. Dread Wanderer makes your team bigger. Wait, what does Dread Wanderer do? I forget all of a sudden. Oh, he's the other 1-drop. Yeah, that comes back from the graveyard of all places. Like, this deck is just bonkers. Lord of the Accursed makes all your guys have menace. Mental Mimic makes your guys bigger. Radiant Elemental is dead. Gets back to a zombie horde. This deck is just pure value, and just it's an apocalypse. You can't slow it down. Just flat out apocalypse here. Next up, and in 8th place, we have Chris Fennell, who I believe is another old school pro player. I could be wrong, but I feel like I've seen his name pop up before in relation to older school Magic. But he's playing Orzhov zombies, or in more limited terms, black-white zombies, because this ain't Ravnica, Chris. Whatever. Of course, he is dipping into white for Binding Mummy. Yeah, that's a thing. And also Wayward Servants. So that's kind of neat. It does kind of lose out on the explosiveness because of the mana base that he's now playing. Obviously, he's got to deal with plains, concealed courtyards, and shambling events, which kind of cuts down his ability to play a faster game, and also losing out Relentless Dead. Wow, seems like a big loss here. So I'd be curious to see if the trade-off in power, because Wayward Servant was apparently the card that broke the zombie mirror. If your opponent's on mono black and you're on black white, Wayward Zombie gives you the edge, and also having Declaration and Stone and Gideon gives you an edge in the mirror. But I have to wonder if playing those 14 white sources comes at a bit of a higher cost than might be acceptable. I think I don't know. Most of the sideboard, with the Gideons and Declarations and Stones, that's a good chunk of your sideboard being dedicated to white spells. So I have to be, I don't know. And sideboarding with this deck, they were kind of looking at it during the course of the tournament. We're saying, you can only take out so many pieces. You can take out a Fatal Push here. You can take out, a creature here, but a creature there. But for the most part, it's a tough deck to really justify, I'm going to take out all of those and put in all of these. And so, obviously, there's a trade-off with mono black being the more fundamentally simple deck, because you just only get one color of sideboard cards and you just work with what the format's given you, as opposed to going two color but sacrificing the mana base for the speed and the power. I don't know. I really don't know if one's better, if one is more right than the other. If you guys have tested it, let me know. I'd be curious to see what you guys think about the deck and the matchup in general. So that's our top 8 right there. Fantastic. Again, if you haven't got a chance to go back and watch the finals, especially, and some of those semifinal matches as well, were really, really great Magic. I love watching all of that. And the commentators, again, did a great job explaining some more of the ins and the outs, and fitting in their jokes where they were appropriate. And the guys are funny. I think they're funny. So that leaves us now where we are at here. Where do we go now with Standard? There's another GP just next weekend that we're going to see Standard on Showcase yet again. And I think we're going to see the same thing we saw here. We're going to see Aetherworks Marvel, Aetherworks, zombies of some variant, and most likely a lot of people who are still holding on to their Heart of Karens going, this card's still really good, we can win the whole thing with it because Mardu's the best. And we'll see if that actually holds true. Just like if I'm going to make some recommendations, I definitely say, if you're going to play zombies, have the patience to not get into those chip shots of damage. Find the advantage first. Play patiently. It's not an aggro deck. There are some times where you just curve 1 to 2 to 3 and kill them, but there are other games where you have to play the waiting game and find your advantage, find your spots, your chip shots here and there, and then just cascade the advantage and to the point where they just can't stop you. Leverage the card draw off of Crypt Breaker. That's absolutely imperative here. Just understand what your deck's role is. Know who the beatdown is, and realize that it might not be you despite playing 22 swamps. If you're going to play Marvelworks Energy, Aetherworks, whatever you go. God, Aetherworks Marvel, there we go. Have the sweeper effects, have the Chandras, go more spell heavy, make the removal in your opponent's deck worse. If Mardu Vehicles is going to continue to be a force, make the removal that they're playing just not work against you. Don't worry about having to play Rogue Refiner and Whirler Virtuoso. Have those on the sideboard maybe, or leave that up to the Tyler Strikers in your sideboard. Play spell heavy. Card advantage is king right now, and that's how these decks win. Look at a deck like Mardu Vehicles, has no actual card advantage, in the sense that it's drawing cards. It has virtual card advantage, but not literal, unlike Zombies and Marvel and Aetherworks Marvel. Card advantage is the key here. So that is kind of where my thought is. Or if you've got some wacky brew out there, go nuts with it. Standard is in a relatively healthy place right now. There were a lot of decks at the Pro Tour. 378 decks showed up. Granted, there was a a bit of a bias towards which one were good, but I'm definitely excited to see what direction Standard takes in the next couple of weeks. Obviously, a few weeks out, we will have Wizards revisiting the banned and restricted list. I don't want to make any, estimates yet, but I can see a case for banning either Ulamog or Aetherworks Marvel. I don't want to call it, but I could see a case being made for it. That's just me. So that is our Pro Tour coverage right there. Again, I've said it already. If you haven't got a chance to watch some of the top 8, go back and do that. Lots of great moments. Lots of really great character coming through from everybody on display there. Great Magic being played all around. Next week, we will be back, hopefully joined by 3 other little boxes in our little window of Magic reporting here. We will have more Standard to talk about. We will have whatever the hell Wizards does in the next 7 days to talk about, because it seems odd that they've gone so many days without doing something crazy yet. Suspicious. Very suspicious. Also, bit of announcement time here. If you've been over to the YouTube channel, and again, if you have, thank you. You may have noticed that I've been doing some movie reviews of specifically the DC Animated Universe films. Started back in 2007 with Superman Doomsday, and we've had about 10 years of these movies up to Teen Titans, the Judas Contract. I'm reviewing all of them, for better or for worse, and I know there's some doozies in there and some real stinkers. What does it have to do with the channel, though? I am looking to expand the amount of content that goes out onto that channel. Sean's already talked about doing some streaming for us, which is going to be great. I love watching him stream. He has great personality to watch stream, and he's a good Magic player as well. So, if you, internet viewer, internet citizen, have an itch, a desire to create Magic-related content of any kind, really, I will entertain all ideas. Or if you just have a nerdy content idea in general, whether it's music, movies, whatever you'd like to talk about that's got some nerd credential to it, shoot me a message. You can find me on Twitter at EOT Newsflash. Shoot me a message on Facebook. Just look for the EOT Newsflash. Send me a comment on the YouTube channel. In the channel down here, there's a box to put comments on and whatnot. Let me know if you've got an idea. I would love to open up this avenue for more people to start contributing and seeing just how big we can make this whole thing here over at the EOT Newsflash. So if you have an idea, please let me know. I would love to just kind of see what kind of crazy out there ideas there are. I will entertain all ideas. They might not be all good ideas, but I'll entertain all ideas. Final say is, of course, mine, so my bias is 100% correct in this case about what is and what isn't good. I digress, I'm sorry. So that's another week for you guys. Thanks so much for watching. Thanks so much for listening. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share the videos. Again, if you've got an idea for content, let me know in the comments or shoot me a message. EOTnewsflash@gmail.com to send all your love, hate, and respect. Check us out every week on the mtgcast.com, along with Turn 1 Thoughtseize and Magic and everybody else over there. It's a great place to listen to Magic podcasts. It's what I do most of my day at work. So, until next time, Steven's not here again, so okay, I'll say it. Let's do it again. Thanks for watching, guys.